An adventure for me is just going to a place where you don't actually know exactly what's going to happen. Notwithstanding your best efforts, best preparation, you're going into a zone where you just actually don't know quite what is going to happen. And taking on from where I heard Earl talking just a few minutes ago, if I can use slightly different language, I think that what Earl was saying is that business today is so often so anxious to cocoon itself with a sense of risk aversion, and frankly it's very timid. It rarely raises its head above the parapet, certainly to be involved in some of the great debates that even here in Australia we need as a nation to resolve some of the insoluble problems. You know, in a nutshell, business doesn't pull its weight to do its part in community. And I want to come back to that in just a minute, because I think really what Earl is saying is that in his vision of a new leader, it actually resonates not only with how he sees it, but indeed with some of the leading academics in business schools at this point. For many years, but in particular in recent years, has been saying the problem with contemporary business is, as I said before, it's just too timid. It surrounds itself in this cocoon of risk aversion, wants to know the answer to everything in advance. There is a reason for that. For goodness sake, as a director of a number of things, the last thing I'd want to do is dismantle risk subcommittees of boards. But what he's really saying is that one of the reasons why business is on the nose in the community, and it is, notwithstanding that business has done more, for example, to alleviate abject poverty in the world over the last 20 years than all the combined bilateral, multilateral aid NGOs together. Commerce has done more to lift hundreds of millions of people out of poverty than all those other organisations. Business here in Australia provides more employment than anything else, underpins our taxation system, enables various layers of government to dish out all the services and what have you. Notwithstanding all those wonderful things, provides goods and services, competitively priced, all that sort of stuff. Business is on the nose. And the research would indicate that business is on the nose because it is seen as being very self-centred. It's seen as always having its hand out and saying to governments, give us a taxation regime that's perfect for us so we can make lots of money. Or give us this, give us that. And Porter says the trouble is that business isn't seen to be a solution to communities' problems. It's just seen on the side actually to be largely take. Now that's a distorted view, I think, but nevertheless the reality is that community as a whole really does speak of disdain with much of business. Now what Porter says, and I absolutely agree with him, is that it actually starts with CEOs and senior management, that more and more we need to get out of our ivory business towers and taste a bit of the real world. In my case, I'm using this year to encourage people that have a bit of time or monetary resources or whatever to have a serious exposure to the non-for-profit sector. For me, it's been wonderful. It's given me far more back than I've ever given it. And it certainly is a terrific way to directly connect oneself to real need, to what real people are saying. I think there are two reasons, amongst many, 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 why if one had the opportunity to go on an extraordinary expedition to the Arctic, why you should take it up with two hands, both hands. The first is to take us out of our comfort zone and to experience what it's really like to not know what might be ahead around the corner. With all the careful, meticulous planning that Earl and his crew will do, there is no doubt in my mind that there will be times when you're beyond the planning. That basically the group will just simply have to say, what do we do now? What is our best plan? I'm not suggesting that it'll get down to survival, but nevertheless, the way forward may not be clear. Typically in business, we have plan after plan after plan, contingency plan here, plan B, plan C. We're carefully scripted to deal with every circumstance. And I think every now and then it's actually good to throw ourselves into a situation where actually no amount of careful planning can actually deal with that. Certainly when we broke the world sailing speed record, there was no textbook on how to take a yacht more than 100 kilometres per hour. And it's a bit like Chuck Yeager when he first popped himself in a plane and went through the speed barrier. He had all these physicists telling him what it would be like, but until he actually did it, he really didn't know. And it was the same with us after destroying our boat several times and hurting ourselves and what have you, to finally actually control this monster under speed and make it go in a straight line was an extraordinary experience, which which I'll never ever forget. But the other reason I think is just to remain grounded. We have a very effective way in society nowadays of actually keeping our most influential people from being grounded. All the information comes up nicely filtered, and we actually even start to lose ourselves. And I think that so many people in positions of influence and leadership today actually could take a good dose of just being really out in the wild for a period of time to really get to know themselves. Can I also just in closing ever so briefly say that with my CSIRO connection, and I'm certainly not there for my scientific brains, but it is a wonderful organisation, and to hear Earl talk about the scientific endeavours and what have you that they hope to achieve on this expedition, it is wonderful. The fact is that we can't take the human footprint for granted anymore. It is having an impact on this Earth. And it's important that we find out as much as possible about what that imprint is, the impact we're having, what we can do to lessen it in the future. And as Earl so eloquently said, Greenland is one of those rare parts of the world where the learning is extraordinary. And yet, whilst it's a test bed of interesting experiments and what have you, it's actually been largely unexplored from a scientific perspective. So, Earl, I wish you all the best. I trust that the expedition is successful in every sense of the word, and I commend you for it.